Excuse me, I will. Actually, it was on there. So I
Okay.
just clicked on it. So you're gonna be live in two
Yes, ma'am.
minutes. Go right ahead.
So that's part of the like overarching structure ritually of what's happening. So the itas are the first conversation. It's the first word of your divinities that you just married after this marriage ceremony. It's the honeymoon. Like you're in the like, how they talk about in Christianity, like the Song of Psalms, that like I'm gonna, be in love with the rapture of God and come into my bedchamber and like let's, get it on. You know what I mean? This is that kind of pillow talk. And so don't be fearful of what might pop up. Because I know for me, and this is in my maturity, I was like, no whammies. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want nothing bad. I don't want, and like, it's going to mean a thing if I get tons of things taken away from me, or it's going to mean a thing if like, and so, no, let that out of your mind. It's literally your beloved, your spouse, your partner, your mate, the invisible being that's holding your hand throughout your entire life, being like, I cherish you. I love you. And I want to share some insights because I have a larger perspective and I'm coming from a different space to be able to provide a life that's actually worth it. And so, you know, that's kind of what we're dealing with tonight. And, every Orisha you ever receive in your life is that first reading is that. It's our lifetime reading. And it's going to have some, hey, turn left, turn right, don't, stop at the stoplight, go around the tree a couple of times and then do, also they're talking about, kind of in turning time. And so some people like, hear, oh yeah, you're gonna have 100 godchildren and you're gonna do this and you're gonna be famous. And they want to do that in the immediate. That's lifetimes worth of work. And also it can be metaphor and simile for you're making a big difference in people's lives. And so, some people come to me and it's like, oh, I was supposed to in my town, like have all these godchildren, never had godchildren. I don't know what's and I'm like, don't take it as like in that biblical literal like, or that you're doing something wrong because you haven't done that yet. Right? Take it in. You might be affecting and a change maker and you know, a mother, a father, a parent to a larger community, right? And you're making a difference in people's lives versus you have to have it, all this kind of like because they're pointing to larger things than just the title or the like, all this kind of thought. And so that's where I see a lot of people get twisted is thinking that like if they don't have a certain thing by a certain time, if they're not a whatever, then they're doing something bad, as well as the kind of the ego element of, well, I'm going to be the most important thing in the room. And so, look out, you know what I mean? Or my Ita said, I'm the grand poobah. No, I mean, how many of us, like, and it took me how many years of training before even in, like people like, and I'm not just, it's my experience on how to talk to myself, but like, it's not like I was born and all of a sudden he was like, the Lion King, like you're the, right? Like I'm having to engage it on a daily practice in a daily level. And if that happens, amazing. But I'm doing this for me. And so try not to think of it in, oh, by the time my EL year is over, I have to like have 30,000 godchildren, have a temple, be the grand poobah of Orisha, because it's my, it says that in the literal text that it have you. Um, the prohibitions again, these are things that they're just saying out of, hey, I love you.
I love
Please
that.
watch out for this.
Mhm.
You know, for me, I have like hereditary wise, like all my people die of heart attacks and strokes. And so I was given some really intense taboos from me at the time. And I realized that it was because of health history. So like I can't do I can't do like grains. I can't do dairy. And those are my two, like, if I was gonna have milk, that was gonna be it. Like that's everything that I would eat. And so it took me a while to get to that phase of eliminating grains, eliminating dairy. It wasn't just because they said it, it happened immediately. So first I started off with, you know, wheat and gave wheat up. Then I started to like, look at other grains and how they made me feel. And so occasionally, like I have rice, occasionally I have corn, but it's not um, it's not if you don't do it immediately, you're gonna die and the world's gonna end and all of that kind of vibe. Also, some things that we talk about, that it's, very much from the get-go was like, it's okay to have a little special on a special day, and you give it to them first, and you explain, hey, this is a moment of celebration, that kind of vibe, versus like if you have it or you don't know about it, you're gonna, again, like it's not coming from that punishing God narrative, right? Um, there also might be lists of orisha that you're supposed to receive for whatever reasons, and take your time with it. Again, this isn't tomorrow. This is on your whole life. These are medicines that are going to be important for your elevation and evolution. And, Ian Ether will be like, oh, you should consider getting this at this time versus, having to go bankrupt thinking that you have 30,000 Alicia that you have to receive tomorrow, right? That's not what they want either. And so the more that we can take it out of like that commodity into these are relationships that I'm supposed to build with. And even looking at before I get the spirit, like, can I go to the mountains? Can I go to the river? Can I go where they lie and just sit with them? Because they want the relationship. They want us to be present. They want us to be in space with them. So yeah, and just however, whatever chooses to be said, like, Ianetha's gonna interpret it from a place of love and joy and affirming. I'm gonna do the same, so, and then, people do, that some of the homework is like, you might want to read about the Odu, but always don't take it with that punishing God narrative, as well as this is the Bible truth in this room, and then everything else is supportive of that. And so if it's not said here, then it might not be the advice for you specifically, because you're reading an Odu that's for everybody who's ever received that Odu. And so what gets interpreted here is for you specifically with that Odu that's arising. So that's all I say.
Good stuff. Good stuff. You gotta finish your notes, digest some stuff on that. To me, really touched upon all of the key factors around that ETI and so much good information. And so making sure that you understand now what an ETI is. And they also use the word Italogun. You'll hear that in Isheshe interchangeably. They also might say your Odu. Sometimes they'll call it what's your Odu. But they're talking about your Ita. And the difference between an Ita and a life reading is that that Ita really applies to, of course, your whole life, not just a particular moment in time. And the Ita is considered part of your destiny and part of the destiny that your Ori chose, right? When you were a soul in heaven, right? descending into a body. And if you ever attended that Ori Master Training with me, you know that story about when your spirit went to the house of a Jalamopan to ask for your Ori. And a Jalamopan, who was one of Obatala's lieutenant commanders, and who was one of the guardians over how do I call it? The sacred database, the big castle where all the files for every human being lie, right? All the data, all the information, literally, not just about human beings, every living thing. So from technology to the animals, to the birds, to the lakes, to the lagoons, to the oceans, every bit of information, every strand of data about the universe that we live in is at the house of a Jalamopa. And so when you go there, you're getting your particular file. So basically, you go there, your breath descends, you go in there, a Jalamopa say, Ifa Kimi, come on down. You down here with file number 2 million, 2,030,000, like that. And then that file is open and downloaded first time when you would have gotten your Essentai yet. So most of us don't get it until adults. But remember, in Ifa Yoruba tradition, you would get it after 3 days old. You get your very first reading, your very first Odu. So your parents know how to plan for you and the things to do. Then you get your big Odu, the full file. Well, this is considered to be like half of the file. But remember, this is like, if you know anything about computers, this is like 2 terabytes or something. I mean, it's huge. And so you're going to go in there now and you're going to get 1/2 of the roadmap. So just think about it like a treasure map, and it has pieces on it. And the first time you get the first piece is 3 days after you're born, when you get your Essentai in a perfect world. But again, for most of us who live in the Western world, we don't get it, till we're older. So anyway, then you would come back later on in life. In the Nigerian system, Sheshe, they get their Ishefa. So that's like their high school diploma in Nigeria, because it is the first real big chunk of your walk in this lifetime. And it's in good business to really study that Itai just as much as you're going to study the one for Olorisha. Now, the difference between your Ishefa, Itai, and your Olorisha or Eolorisha Itai is that this has to do specifically with how the Orisha are going to help you to get and stay in alignment to achieve your destiny. So that's the key about that. You got something on that?
Well, Ifa also speaks about your lifetimes in like your soul art, right? And sometimes Orishas speak about this specific lifetime, right? And what you need. And so, there's, it's like a kind of a multi-level form of Itai.
Dimensional.
Yeah.
That's true.
So that's also what, like, when you receive your Ishefa, like it's speaking at that soul seed level. And then Orisha, for me, and this is me, my perspective, it's a, you in this lifetime as a devotee of an Orisha, how you're supposed to work with your spirit. Right? And so that's part of it.
I understand.
I apologize,
to me. It's like that OD went out of my mind.
It went.
It'll come back. It'll come right back. Remember, it was something around that Itai and the Orisha, the connection with the Itai and the Orisha that you were thinking of. And so, now the last piece would be around. So again, how is that Orisha that you got initiated to? What is their role in helping you? It's literally your Orisha's message to you. So it's Ogun's message, it's Oshun's message, it's Obatala, Shango. And he's gonna talk just like he just came and knocked on the door. Knock, knock, knock. I'm here for Kayode. I got a message for Kayode. Come on in. All right. It's my first time meeting you and talking to you like this. So think about like if your grandmama first, you know what I mean, came on over and she been having dreams and knowing all about you. But anyway, and so the Dilogun, which is what you receive when you become initiated as an Olarisha or Ilarisha, the Dilogun becomes the mouth of the Orisha and the living body of information. And so when we cast those Dilogun, we're going to cast them twice to get a full composite. Now, in some sects, SECTS, they only cast one time. And they only tell you about that first Odu that falls. But again, because we're Isheshe house and we want a full composite, we let it speak twice. So verses like if we threw and it said Obara, they would just talk to you about Obara.
Obara Meji.
But in our temple, and how Oloye taught me, is I cast twice. So that it's almost like I'm doing the Opwele, because I'm getting both sides of your walk. I'm getting the side that Eshu speaks on and the side that Arumala speaks on about your life through the mouth of your Orisha. So it's that Orisha is telling you, the data that was in your file up there in the house of Jalamopen about basically what Shango or Oshun or Obata or Ogun's role is in the medicine that he in particular. So why do we even have to get supporting Orishas? Because sometimes a human being may need a lot of medicine, is what Bob was talking about. You get that Ita like I got, where I was almost in tears, like you need 16 Orisha. Like, I'm still paying back the money from the first one, So what? But anyway, so that Orisha's role in your upliftment, healing, survival, and sustainability. It's messages to you. And so that's what's going to happen when you go through and you cast those shells today. And your deity sits down and speaks to you about your life and what they see. Now here's the thing, based on the medicine that they are coming to bring. So it's what Bob was saying, it's that individual. And then the last thing, keep in mind, you are the Odu, sacred scriptural wisdom of Ifa, which is called the Odu Ifa, the liturgy, the poetry, all of those terms interchangeably. These were living, breathing beings. They were little prophets and sages in their own way. So remember, these Odus once walked the planet. And so you are a descendant of that Odu. So it's just like a Thich Nhat Hanh or Martin Luther King or Audre Lorde. Let's say if she had, 15 children and they had 15 children and this is what's happening with this. So you're the children of these Odu, and the very first Odu that's gonna fall is like your mother. It's the main parent with the core message about your identity. So if we was using the Opwele, we're gonna use the Dilogun tonight. But if we was using the Opwele, it would be the one. Lord, I gotta see it. You read from right to left, so it'd be the one on the right. Would be that mother, is like equal to the first throw. So you want to really pay attention to the very first throw that comes. And how I was taught, study the Odus individually. So study the book of Obara, study the book of Ejiakbe, learn everything you can. And then I want to flip it back to Awo after this. And these are some of the things, the key things that you want to try to pick up as you study. Number one, who are the Orisha that's speaking that Odu? And by who, I mean What were their struggles?
Mhm.
What was their E-ray? See? Because, so what was Shango's struggles in life? So if your Odu is Obara, you already know this Odu is really speaking from Shango's perspective because he owns that Odu. So what was Shango's struggle? Because your Odu is his medicine, right? So his struggle was addiction. His struggle was his excesses, his women, his food, his drugs, his partying, his trust in the wrong people, right? His not wanting to recognize people that were posing as friends who were really enemies because his heart was so big. So these were his struggles. What was his E-ray? He's a master diviner. He's a master orator. He's a master at organizing people and bringing people together and helping them to do things, right? He was a warrior, not because he fought so well, but because he was a great strategizer. It wasn't about the fight. Again, we learned that earlier. It's about his ability to strategize and to employ the people and the resources that he had. So you remember in that great battle in Oyo that the Woman King is made about, Shango, he used some of the teachings of Sun Tzu. And what he did was he put his weakest soldiers out there first. So when they killed them, they thought they were killing his best, but they didn't know they had gotten the ones that he already knew was going to die. Then he sent in the ones that could jack a fool up. And by then they had used up a lot of their artillery. They were tired because they had been battling for an hour or two. So then in the other 200 or 300 that he left back, boom. Now you're going to feel my fire. So that was, just brilliant, smart. What else are Shango's E-ray? His drumming, he's a master drummer, dancer. He was loyal. One of his great assets is his loyalty. You get a Shango at your back, you got a friend for life. Don't mess it up. Because he's going to have your back. Right? So these are some of his great E-rays. He's also a creative. Very creative. Also a lot of business acumen. So again, now as you're interpreting your Odu and you're studying it for yourself, number one, who's the Orisha to speak? Number two, what is his challenges? What is his E-ray? Right? And then the third things, what are the assets that he's telling you that you have? What are the blessings that Shango's revealing through this Ita or this particular Odu is revealing that are coming to your life? This person might, like Baba said, this person will be a great leader. This person's going to have a lot of godchildren. Well, what do you need? What kind of training and skills do you need to have to be a great leader? Because it's not going to happen by osmosis. And then what are the taboos? So these are the kind of like the layers now that we want to start interpreting these Odus as. I'm sorry. Accident, yes.
And one thing that we like to kind of go deeper is, every Odu might say something about money situation, health. How can you apply it to different areas of your life? Right? So relationships, health, longevity, money, social interactions, spiritual interactions, and to see how to kind of correlate what it's saying in each of these different levels. The other thing is that these Odus given a narrative or a storyline of what was happening in a specific place and time in Shango's life or in Oshun's life. And so it's going to tell you how that Orisha is entering your life at a specific moment, right? Because they each were doing so many different things in every Odu, right? And so it's, this is the moment when Oshun went from, having nothing into having everything. And so it's going to be the same thing of what it's saying to you in similar metaphor. You're at a place where you're trying to figure out how to break through or how to create a thing, and you have the inspiration, but you're not like, it hasn't materialized. So what she did is then how they're telling you to do the thing, right? Or, this was the moment when Obatala was, dealing with some mental health difficulties. And so the way that he handled his depression is the same way that you might want to handle yours, right? Or, ongoing. So if they mention, oh, this is the sign where, that this happened, it's pointing to something similar in us in metaphor and simile. And if we follow the advice that they went through, you're going to end up in the same position, right? Also, there might be gestures towards lifetime medicines that you should follow. So, one of mine is, around breaking poverty narrative. And so, some of it has to deal with like the relationship between Shango and Osho and how to deal with it whenever like I'm either overspending or, doing so. It's like, okay, here's an ebo, but then I have it in my own medicine cabinet of when I'm going through this time, every time in my life, what I can do to move it, right? Or, it also might be like you have a relative who might be ill. So like you might want to spend time with them at this time. Or there's a specific ebo for whenever your mom gets sick or whenever somebody, so it's not that it's going to happen tomorrow. It's okay, if this arises, then this is what you need to do then, if that makes sense.
Excellent.
Yeah, well,
Are do we receive an Odu for both head and feet or just for head?
every Orisha that's ever birthed for you, that's a full Orisha that speaks in 16 calories, gets an Ita. So your Eshus, your head, and your feet. So there's going to be 3 Odus that speak to you tonight, or whenever you receive that. And there's a difference between that and like what we call a washed Orisha, which is a fully consecrated to speak. They only speak through 4 calories, or obi versus like the 16 calorie or the, with Ifa, the okwele, or, that kind of vibe, if that makes sense. So everything that you receive in Igbo do today, or, it's going to have an Ita with it.
So kind of a part 2 is, it makes complete and total sense understanding how the one Odu, all the lessons, the E-ray and struggles and so on and so forth. If there's 3 to receive, we need to figure out how those 3 work together.
And it's a different, so just like Ia has her perspective, and I have my perspective, and Ia has her perspective, and Ia has her perspective, and Yaba has their perspective. So it's literally sitting with all of us in a room and all of us saying, these are important things for you to know. And we might say the same thing, but in our different ways. We might say something completely different from each other, not like in contradiction, but our emphasis of what we think is important is going to be different because we're different people. Just like what our parents say, they have 2 different ideas of what they might be teaching us, but under the umbrella of hopefully in healed ways, like we want your life to be good. So you have your Eshu, and what is Eshu about? Right, think about that, right? So Eshu is about literally opening your paths, and what are ways that we're communicating with the divine, that we're doing, like we're doing things in the world, right? Like he's the first one that says anything, he's the translator between, our wants and desires to speaking it to the cosmos, to getting the responses back. He has the first and last say. Then the head is your consciousness, right? So it's literally your like your crown Orisha is your path of liberation, and ultimately where you're going. And then your feet is how you're getting there. So Eshu is opening the ways, the head, the path of liberation, right? Your feet, how am I doing the thing? And so they're each going to take very different perspectives, but they're speaking about your life as a whole.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And then your Ishefa is your soul contract, right? Like your soul, like in every iteration that your soul will ever go through to time and space, the seed of that.
Okay.
And then your Itefa is like the full picture of that.
Okay. Thank you.
And it helps to think of it like a puzzle again, or a map, and think of it sectionally. You know what I mean? And so you're gathering through your initiatory journey and your divinations pieces of the puzzle that make up you. And in it, again, should be not just the negatives, but the positives too. And I love how Baba put it, that it's like the Odus love you. That's why they're giving you these insights and this information, because the whole idea is for you to be able to navigate around the obstacles. That's the whole idea for it. I mean, because if not, why get it? Right? Why am I being told I shouldn't eat this, or I shouldn't go here, or I shouldn't do this, if it's not going to help me be more successful, happy, and healthy? And then, were you done? I don't want to interrupt.
Yes, ma'am.
So then, when you get your books, this is a more for Ifa, for, of course, Ifa divination, which is different from the D Lagoon. But my point is, every Odu, every scriptural wisdom in the Ifa tradition has verses. So just like the Holy Bible, most of us was raised up at some point we went to the church, or the Quran, for example. There's scriptural wisdoms in that body, in that book of medicine. And every Odu has verses. Those verses make up a consistent and a structured explanation of what those Odus mean. So even if the interpretations differ, the core meaning of it is the same. Right? An orange has good vitamin C. Most of them, like there's a blood orange, there's different types of oranges, but all of them have some core elements that are the same. So whether you read about Ejiagbe in here, or you read about it in the big red book, or you read about it in Nemark's book, there's going to be some core things that are the same every time. And I'll tell you what some of those are. The same Orisha is always going to speak in those Odus. I have seen some variations according to branch, but like I've never read a book where Obatala didn't speak in Ejiagbe. You know what I mean? I've never read a book where Shango didn't speak in Irosuni, Wari, and Obara. Right? I've never read a book where Oshun didn't speak in O'Shea. So those are key and core elements to understanding what the Odus mean. So again, like Baba's saying, the priest certainly is going to be influenced by perception of what they're reading. So, so there's a piece of spiritual literacy with the Odu Ifa that is important. And what I'm learning now in this stage of my training is about the I'm trying to think how to say it where y'all will get it. The events that were happening at that time, Baba touched on that and I wrote it down. The point was the life events that were happening during that time, the world events, the climate and ecological challenges faced by humanity at that time, and the political and social